Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome along to today's management reports webinar. So we're going to be looking at the key management reports in Sage 50 accounts, so trial balance, profit and loss, and balance sheet. So we're going to be looking at how you go about running them, and also how they calculate, and hopefully we'll pick up some of the common queries along the way and answer any questions that you have as well. So a session this afternoon should last around about 45 minutes. It'll give us plenty of time to get through the demonstrations, and also give us a chance to pick up your questions that you might have as well. Now, just before we get started with the demonstrations, a little bit of housekeeping. If you've attended webinars before, you'll be fully aware of these options, but you don't need a microphone for the webinars that we offer. If you've got one and you enable it, you'll just find you muted automatically, and you can't unmute yourself during the session. So that means you can't verbally ask any questions, but you will be able to submit them via the questions panel if you have any. So I'm joined today by Jackie, James, and Tina, and they'll be on hand to answer any questions that you submit. If you can't currently see that questions panel in the bottom right-hand corner, all you need to do, just on your toolbar, just click that little icon, the one that looks like the speech bubble containing the question mark, and you should then see that box and you can start typing any comments or questions that you have at that point. There is a copy of today's slides, not that we're using many of them today, but there is a copy of them available to download. So you've got a little handouts icon on your toolbar, and there's also an option to switch to full screen mode. So as normal, I will be sharing my screen during the session today, which will form the majority of the demonstrations. So you never know, that may make things just that little bit clearer when I am sharing my screen. Right, so that's the housekeeping. Let's have a look at what we're covering. So in a minute, I'm going to get stuck straight into some demonstrations. So we're going to explain a little bit about the nominal monthly balances, what those are. They basically form the building blocks for your management reports. So we'll cover those. We're then going to move on to the trial balance, have a quick look at the report and explain how it calculates. We'll pick up on the chart of accounts. Now, I'm only going to spend a few minutes looking at the chart of accounts because yesterday we did run a webinar dedicated to the chart of accounts. So if you didn't get a chance to attend that one, I would encourage you to check out the recordings, and the link will be provided on your follow-up email, which you will receive around about an hour after we finish today's session. So if you need to learn more about that, that's where you'll find it. We'll then move on to the profit and loss and also the balance sheet. So again, for each of those two reports, having a look at how you run them, the information it shows, and also explaining how the information calculates and the difference between the two in the way that they calculate as well. Yes, they're picking up different nominal codes, but we'll pick up on the difference in the way that some of the values actually calculate for the report. Just at the end of the session, we'll explain more about the additional support that's available and also explain how to just cover some of those webinars that are now available to book onto. So we'll just I'll give you an idea of what's coming up in the next month. Right, so we'll get started. I'm going to share my screen at this point, so we'll come back to the slides at the very end of the session. Right, so first area that we're going to be looking at with you today is what I termed the nominal monthly balances. There's a few descriptions of these that you'll hear used by whether you speak to our support team or maybe other Sage users. So you hear about monthly balances, nominal balances, monthly buckets. There's a few different terms that people use for these. But what do I mean by that? Well, if we go into nominal codes, and I just call up one of my nominal records. So I'm going to pick up on one of my sales nominal codes today. So this sales north, so 4,000. And when I'm talking about the nominal buckets or these monthly balances, it's these figures here in the actuals column. So as you enter transactions, it will feed the value, assuming you post it to this nominal code, of course, it will feed that value into the relevant monthly field. Now you'll see the monthly fields, and you've got your months listed down the left-hand side there. It runs from BF, so brought forward. So basically any balance prior to the start of your current financial year. It's then got the months of your financial year. Now mine does run January through to December on the data that I'm using today. Obviously, the other common one is probably going to be April through to the following March, and it will just list them in the relevant order accordingly. So it's brought forward, then it's got the months of your current financial year, whatever you've got that set to. You've got a future total, So that would be a build-up of any values that have been ported to this nominal code beyond the end of your current financial year. And then you've got a total as well. So as you can see currently in the actuals column for the month of November, I've not got any value in there. So what I'll do is I'll quickly enter a transaction just so you can see how it feeds through. So what I'll do is I'll do a basic batch invoice. So we'll choose a customer, doesn't really matter who they are. Just use today's date so that it falls into the important key, or the two key points, I suppose, is going to be the date, so it falls into that relevant period, but also that nominal code that I've just looked at. So I'll just put sales in the details, and we'll do £500. Leave it set to T1, £100 VAT, and I'll save that transaction. Now, if I go back to the nominal codes window and bring that nominal code back up, you'll now see in the actuals column against the month of November, we've got that £500. Now, it is the net value that has been picked up there. The VAT would go off, in this case, to the sales tax control account. So it's a net value. And as you enter transactions, they'll just be essentially feed into the relevant period according to the date of the transaction. So if you did need to backdate one to April, it would just update in this case, the £4,000 that I've got there, just calculate accordingly. And because that calculation is done at this stage against each of your nominal codes, it means that most of the calculating is actually done already for you when you come to generate the period-based management reports. So it means that when we come to produce a trial balance, a profit and loss balance sheet, a lot of the legwork is essentially done for you and already in the background. So what it's going to do is it's going to add up these balances. So for instance, if I was to run a trial balance, and I say, right, I want to run that up to the end of October as an example, what it will do, it will look at the individual nominal codes and it will look at the actuals column, and it would add up all of these monthly balances up to and including the month that I specify. And if there is a balance calculated, it will include it on the report. So as I say, this is essentially, these are the building blocks for your reports. Right, now let's have a quick look at the trial balance. So the trial balance is available from your toolbar at the top. You can also, if you've got it available within your nominal codes window, you can go into reports and you would have a trial balance folder in there as well. And sometimes there's a few different variations of them, and the variations will differ depending on what level of the software that you're actually on. But what I'm going to concentrate on today is these three icons at the top: the trial balance, the profit and loss, and the balance sheet. So we click the trial balance, and obviously we'll just preview it so that you can see what that report looks like. So initially when we run that report, first thing it prompts us for is the criteria. So the only criteria I need to specify here is when do I want to run that report up to. Now it will default to the last month of your current financial year. Now don't get confused about the number at the beginning. So it's not running it to the 12th of December or the 8th of August or the 6th of June. The number at the beginning there, it relates to the month number of your financial year. So if I just look at the full drop down there, if we go up to the top, you've got brought forward, then month 1, January, month 2, February, etc. So again, that will correlate to whatever your financial year is currently set to. So in this case, if I was running it up to the month 10, October 2022, so we'll choose that, click OK, and it will generate the report for me. Now let's zoom in so you can see that in a little bit more detail. Right, now when we run this report, and we've chosen to run it up to and including month 10 in my case, what it will do, it will look at each nominal code in turn, and we'll look at that actuals column within each of the records. Now what it will do in that actual forward up to and including the month that you specify, so month 10 in my case. So it's going to add up all those monthly balances. And if there is a balance against that nominal code calculated for that period, it will include it on the report. Obviously, it's going to show you the balance and whether it's a debit balance or a credit balance that has been calculated. Now, as the report would suggest, it should balance. So if we go all the way down to the bottom, the total of your debits and the total of your credits should always be equal. The only time that may differ is if you had some, say, errors in your data, or maybe you were running a departmental trial balance. So it is actually possible if you were to do a journal, you might have, for instance, a debit posted to one department and the credit posted to another. And that would mean that, even just based on that alone, that running a trial balance for one of your departments only, it could mean that maybe your trial balance doesn't balance. But the standard one that we just looked at, it should always balance. Now, when you're looking at a trial balance, and if I just go down to my sales nominal code again, so we got sales north, and I've got a balance there of, following that across, £173,881.08. Now, if you're ever looking at a trial balance and you preview it and you think, right, well, yeah, that's the value, but where's that come from? When you preview a management report, you should find that the values are in blue, and that means it's drillable. Now, by that, it means you can click on it. So when you move your mouse pointer over the value in blue, you'll see that turns to the, not sure if it's the correct term, but the pointy finger icon. So if you just give it a click, what it will do, it will run another report in the background. So essentially it drills down on that value. So in this case, because I drill down on the value against nominal 4,000, it's run, in this case, the nominal activity for nominal 4,000, and it's picking up the relevant date range for me. So it's running it from month 1 up to and including month 10. And it does include a brought forward balance, which I don't have a brought forward balance against this nominal code, but you wouldn't really expect to for any of your profit and loss nominal codes. So that's the basics of how that report calculates. You can see I've got 2 tabs at the top as well. So if I want to switch back to the TB, just click back to the relevant tab at the top, and again I can start drilling down. So I drill down, and again it runs that nominal activity for the value that I've clicked onto. So really easy if you're looking at your management reports to drill down to get all the way down to transactional information should you need it. Any questions on the trial balance at all? I suppose the key is when you're talking about the trial balance is it includes all nominal codes that have a balance for the relevant period. Any that don't are excluded from the report. Now, when you run reports as normal, you've got the standard output options. So you've got the option to print it, you can email it. You've got the option to export it, so save it as a particular file type. Loads of supported file types available, PDF, HTML. Obviously, you've got your standard sort of Excel formats as well. So loads of options on that. And of course, you've got your option to send the report to Excel or the data to Excel. Sends it in a slightly different format. Depends what you want to do with it. Quick question from Nahida. Just asking that, and Tina's picking that up, but just for everyone else's benefit as well. Question there is, can you run a TB that shows the monthly activity for the specific month and also the year-to-date figures? Not as a standard report. It's not a standard report for that one. Essentially, you would have to, I suppose you're going to have to run the standard, obviously year-to-date, which is what the standard trial balance shows. But also you would then probably have to run things like nominal activity reports if you wanted period-based figures. Right, okay. Carol as well. Quick question from Carol there. Quickly pick that up one because I know that's going to be a common one. Carol's just asking, can you run a TB or any of the other management reports for that matter for a specific date period that is not necessarily a complete calendar month? So that can be done, but it will be dependent on the level of software that you're actually using. So if you're on the professional level and possibly the standard level as well, but not essentials. So standard or professional, I think you'll be able to go into reports. And if you choose the trial balance, you should have this transactional trial balance report. And if you select that one, you run it, and then you can specify an exact date range. So, but watch out for that one, particularly on the trial balance. Normally what you find with the trial balance, you want the balance as a particular point in time, not necessarily the movement in the period. So that's just something to be aware of. But you have a transactional profit and loss and also a transaction balance sheet available to you as well, should you need it. Right, okay, we'll move on from the trial balance. It's a nice simple one, that one. Just want to quickly now pick up on the chart of accounts. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, chart of accounts, it's something we run a dedicated webinar for. We ran that just yesterday. If you haven't had a chance to attend that session before and you want more information or you want to learn more about the chart of accounts, watch out for your follow-up email. It will include the link to the recording that you need. But the chart of accounts, just for those that maybe never really touched it before, just so you can follow along a little bit, your chart of accounts, there's this option at the top. Now, basically, your chart of accounts is, and you can have multiple layouts, but it's basically, it provides the structure for some of your management reports. So primarily what we're looking at today, the profit and loss and the balance sheet. When you run those reports, and we'll come back to this in a moment as well, but when you run the likes of a profit and loss report, as well as the date range, it would ask you which chart of accounts layout you want to use. So if you've got multiple charts of accounts layouts, you can choose what structure you want to use for that report. We'll come back to the profit and loss in a moment though. So going back to the chart of accounts, if we select this structure, so this default layout of accounts that I've got listed, if I click edit, and it shows me that structure. Now you can amend this, but this determines which nominal codes are pulled through onto your reports, and also, if any, which are added together. So what we've got is, in this chart of accounts layout, in our sales section, we've got a description of product sales. And we've got a low and a high value, so based on a nominal range, 4,000 to 4,099. Now, when we run a profit and loss, which we'll see in a moment, we'll be prompted to enter a date range. And what the software will then do is, based on the chart of accounts that you use, it will then say, right, for product sales, what we're going to do, based on the date range that you've specified, and the nominal range, we're going to add up all of the relevant actual monthly balances for each of the nominal codes in the range and add them together. So you could even amend your chart of accounts ranges so that maybe you just wanted to pick up an individual nominal code. Maybe you want a very sort of detailed profit and loss report. But by default, this layout that I've got selected, it is going to add all of the nominal codes for that product sales line. It's going to add them all together, and it will include it as one value on your profit and loss report. You can amend that as much as you need to as well. But again, if you want more information about the chart of accounts, please watch the recording. Now let's move on to the profit and loss report itself at this stage. So again, toolbar at the top, profit and loss. It's also available via the reports folder, and you've got that profit and loss folder. And again, if you're on the standard or professional level, I think you should then have the transactional report available to you. But we're just going to use the profit and loss option at the top. So we'll give it a click. Just preview the report again. Slightly different criteria this time. So remember on the trial balance, it said, when do you want to run it up to? But this time we're asked, when do you want to run it from and to? Now, by default, it's going to run from month 1 up to and including month 12, and it will pick up one of your chart of accounts, which you can change if necessary. Now, I just accept the default criteria at that point, just OK that. Let's maximize it and zoom in so you can see the figures in a bit more detail. I'm going to come back to the values in a few minutes and how they calculate. But first of all, let's talk a little bit about the structure of that report. So we've got our descriptions down the left, we've got a period column, and we've got a year-to-date column. Now, for the sections on a profit and loss, you've got your sales section, you've got your purchases section, obviously you've got subtotals for each of those, you've got your direct expenses. You're then going to have a gross profit stroke loss subtotal. So basically your sales, less any purchases, less any direct expenses. So giving you a gross profit or loss. You'll then have your any overheads listed. And then you'll have a further subtotal of net profit stroke loss. And you may even have another section depending whether you've used the taxation nominal codes. If you have, and it pulls those through, you're going to have a net profit stroke loss before taxation value. It'll list your taxation section, and then you'll have a net profit stroke loss after taxation. Now, looking at the values themselves, you'll see that in my case, the period values and the year-to-date values, they're actually exactly the same. And that's because I'm essentially running them for the same period. Now, they do calculate in a slightly different way, the period and the year-to-date column. The period column will run as per whatever period you've specified, so month 1 to month 12 in this example. The year-to-date column, however, will always run from month 1. No matter what period you specify, it will always run from month 1 up to the end of the period you've specified. So a little difference there between them. Now, because I've run it month 1 to month 12, essentially both columns are calculating in exactly the same way. So if I just close out of that for a moment and then run the report again, this time I'll specify a slightly different period. So we'll just do March to October. OK, that one. And this time you will see that the figures do differ. So again, just as a reminder of how the period column calculates, it's as per whatever period you specify. So we're looking at remember the actuals columns in the nominal records. You're looking, it's adding up the balances from month 3 to month 10. So they're the monthly balances that are being used. So period, as per the period you specified, year to date, always from month 1 up to, in this case, month 10, so the end of the period you specified. So that's the difference between the way that the two calculate. Now, again, if you're looking, similar to the trial balance, if you're looking at a report and you're thinking, well, where on earth does that figure come from? Wasn't expecting it, it's higher than expected, lower, or just how does it calculate? Well, what you can do is just, again, the figure's in blue, so we can click on it. It's drillable. So we're looking at this 184,000, and we're thinking, right, where does that come from? If we click on it, what it will do, it will drill down one level. So it's saying, right, the figure in sales for product sales, you see there the two totals I had. These total values for product sales are made up of these nominal codes. These are the nominal codes that are contributing a balance to the overall subtotal for, in this case, product sales. So it shows the individual calculated balances. So they're still calculating the same way, the period and the year-to-date column, but we're now looking at individual nominal codes within that product sales range. But you'll see that the figures are in, again, they're in blue. I might be looking and thinking, well, again, maybe that's the difference there. I wasn't expecting this £8,500. So again, I can click on that. And now, a bit like the trial balance, it runs a nominal activity report. for the nominal code that I clicked on there, so 4002 in this example, for the relevant date range. So I clicked on that value in the year-to-date column, so it's month 1 up to and including month 10. So it lists the transactions for that period. Again, each time you drill down, it will open another tab at the top. Again, you've got the options to print the reports, email them, etc. So we'll just close a few of those back to the main P&L report. So that's the key with this report. It does use the chart of accounts. Obviously, your chart of accounts provides that structure, so it knows what nominal codes to pick up and what to add together, etc. So period column, as per the period you specify, year to date from month 1 up to the end of the period you specify. Again, any questions, keep them coming. So we got Jackie, James, Matthew and Tina all on hand answering your questions. So looks like they're keeping on top of them. Right, we'll move on to our final report this afternoon, and it's the balance sheet, again available from the toolbar at the top. So when we run that one, again, we'll just preview it. And again, we get the same criteria as what we presented with when we run the profit and loss. So what period do you want to run it for? And also which chart of accounts layout do you want to use? Now, if I just accept the defaults and OK that, and again, we'll zoom in just so you can see that. Well, the first thing that you're probably going to notice is that this time, even though I've accepted the defaults, that the values are actually different. And I'll come back to the values and the way they calculate in just a few minutes. But again, just quickly running through the structure of the report. So again, we've got the period, year-to-date columns, and we've got our descriptions. So we've got our fixed assets section. We've got our current assets section. Again, subtotals for each of these. Current liabilities. You've got your current assets less your current liabilities. You've got your total assets less your current liabilities, so your fixed assets plus your current assets less your current liabilities. And then you've got your long-term liabilities listed. And then your overall figure there of your total assets less your total liabilities. And then the final section is your capital and reserves. Now, just going back to the way that the figures calculate this time. Now, this time, the period column, it works in exactly the same way as it did for the profit and loss. It calculates as per whatever period you specify. So in this case, month 1 to month 12. So again, it's looking at your chart of accounts, it's seeing which nominal codes it should pick up based on the ranges in that chart of account structure. And it's adding the relevant figures together for the period specified. So in this case, month 1 to month 12. And if there is a figure, it will include it on the report. If there isn't a value, obviously it doesn't include it. Now, there's not a value in this period column, but because it does calculate a year-to-date figure, it does include it on the report. Now, why are the figures different if we've just accepted the default criteria? Well, the period column, as we mentioned, it's as per the period you specify. But the year-to-date this time is a little bit different. The year-to-date calculates from brought forward up to the end of the period you specified. So a little bit different to the way that the profit and loss calculates. Remember, profit and loss was always from month 1 up to the end of the period. Balance sheet is from brought forward to the end of the period. For profit and loss, you're normally looking on a year-to-date basis. You're looking from the first day of the financial year. Whereas for a balance sheet, you're looking for the value of your assets and your liabilities, etc., as at the end of the period you specify. So it needs to include that brought forward balance. So for instance, if you had a bank balance at the end of your previous financial year, you would want that figure to be included in the year-to-date figure. So you know what the value of that account is as at the end of the period you specified. So that's the subtle difference between the two the way that the two calculate. Hope that makes sense. Now again, just going back to the totals at the bottom as well, if I just scroll up a little bit, you should always find that your total assets less your total liabilities, whatever you've got as your total, it should always be equal to in this case, the total for the capital and reserves. Now, again, there can be a number of reasons why it might not be the same. It could be a chart of accounts issue, potentially it could be errors in your data, or the other reason would be if you were running not this report, but maybe a departmental balance sheet. Then again, you could be in a similar position as we mentioned a little bit about when we're talking about the trial balance. So Key, you mentioned there, you mentioned about the chart of accounts there. Hope I'm pronouncing your name right. You mentioned how can you manage and modify the chart of accounts. As I mentioned, there is a recorded webinar available on that one, which you ran just yesterday. So do watch the recording. That will get you up to speed with what you need to know about the chart of accounts. The link will be included on your follow-up email. Right, now that just about brings us to the end of the planned demos. If anyone's got any requests, we'll maybe try and pick those up in just a couple of minutes as well. But just going back to the slides very briefly, I just want to quickly mention a little bit about the Help Center. So I did mention at the beginning that you can download a copy of the slides, but there's not much information on there, to be quite honest. And I didn't want to provide you with any other information because all of the information is available from within our Help Center. Nice and easy to access. You can either open your web browser, just go to ch.co.uk/help, or within your software on your toolbar, the one that runs down the left-hand side, towards the top, you've got that Help Center link. So all of the information that we've covered today, it is in there. So do access that and do use it. Really comprehensive. It's where you'll find all the latest information to support you with your software. In there, you'll find support guides, links to webinars, videos, and also beyond that, if you need a little bit of support, you'll find the options for getting in touch with our support team as well. For some of the upcoming webinars, just to give you an idea of what we've got planned in, we've got CIS planned in. So we're running that one next week. I think that should be on the Wednesday rather than the Tuesday. I think I've just got the day wrong on that one. But we're also starting to run a lot more webinars, or we've got more planned in for the report design side of the software as well. Being very popular, those sessions. I had loads of requests to take it sort of to another level. So we've got Tina, our resident expert. She'll be running sessions over the coming months on the report designer. Loads of other sessions as well. Again, if you are wanting to register for any of those sessions, then watch out for your follow-up email and it will include the links that you need. Right, so I'm going to quickly thank you for your time for coming along today. Hope you've enjoyed it and you found it useful. We're going to hang around just for some additional questions. So we'll try and answer as many as we can. So we'll hang around for about another 5 minutes just to see what questions we can pick up. If they die down, we'll just end the webinar at that point. But I want to quickly thank you for coming along. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you've got any feedback like you want to share with us, anything and everything, ideas how we can improve webinars, topics you'd like to see covered, what you liked, didn't like, then let us know. There'll be a short exit survey pop-up as you leave today. So if you can take a minute to provide any feedback, that would be greatly appreciated. We love reading your comments. Follow-up email should be with you in around about an hour's time, and it will have the links on that you need. If anyone would like to join us on our Sage 50 accounts quiz, so if you've got a spare 45 minutes, we'll be running that one at 3 o'clock this afternoon, just to help celebrate International Accounting Day, which is today. So if you are wanting to attend that one, you'll need to be quick with getting yourself registered, but nice and easy to do that. I'll just quickly share my screen, show you how you would go about doing that. Just within your software, if you go to your home page, so on your toolbar, top left, click home, and one of your panels will be free webinars. If you click your more info link, it should open that page within your browser, You'll be able to come in and get yourself registered for the quiz. So that starts at 3 p.m. this afternoon. So myself and Jackie will be taking you through a series of questions and obviously providing a few demos here and there as well. So if you want to test your knowledge, please get yourself signed up. Right, okay. Let's see if we've got any outstanding questions that maybe I can assist with as well. Alan, you're just mentioning there a little bit about the, if you prepare specification, I'm assuming you're referring to a customized report here, it looks like it. Could someone at Sage create that report for you? So if you want to prepare that, then get in touch with our support team. We do have a report design service. Now, it may be chargeable, it may not be, depends on your level of cover. So get in touch with our support team and they can advise you on that. Abdul, you're mentioning about MTD for ITSA, which we've introduced. It's not next year, it's the year after, isn't it? How would you go about submitting your figures? We're not covering that in this session yet. So I'm sure there'll be loads of information come out nearer the time. But watch out for that one. Right, okay, so questions drying up there. If anyone does think of anything else, do check through the help center. As I say, really comprehensive, the information that is available in there. And beyond that, remember you've got access to our support team. So once again, thanks for coming along. Take care, stay safe, and hopefully we'll see you on some future sessions. Many thanks.